Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to strap on the muddy boots of a 19th century explorer to investigate one of history's absolute most haunting mysteries, the collapse of the classic Maya. We're going to figure out how magnificent, densely populated urban centers were completely swallowed up by the jungle, and why their people simply decided to walk away.
Picture this. It's 1839. You're traveling by mule through suffocating humidity, sweltering heat, completely plagued by insects and torrential rain. You swing a machete to clear the thick undergrowth, and suddenly, out of nowhere, you reveal impossible, colossal pyramids completely consumed by the Central American rainforest. This was the exact, mind-blowing experience of American diplomat John Lloyd Stevens and British architect Frederick Catherwood.
Section 1. Uncovering the Silent Cities. Let's dig in.
Now, back then, these discoveries completely shattered the 19th century prejudice that no indigenous civilization could have built such marvels. Seriously, the prevailing and entirely incorrect wisdom of the time was that these ruins just had to be the work of ancient Egyptians or some lost tribe of Israel. But explorer John Lloyd Stevens was so convinced of their homegrown brilliance that he actually purchased an entire lost city, the site of Copan, from its bewildered owner for just $50. $50. That's literally less than a modern dinner for two for an entire lost metropolis. And while Stevens wrote about it, Catherwood used a device called a camera lucida to trace the intricate carvings with unprecedented accuracy, proving to the whole world the incredible sophistication of this indigenous American civilization.
Which brings us to Section 2, the King's Cosmic Bargain.
To figure out why these stunning, white-plastered mega-cities were abandoned, we first have to decode how their society actually worked. Let's look at the Kuhul Ajau. As an explorer dusting off these ancient stones, you'd quickly realize the king wasn't just a politician or a military general. No, he was a divine shaman. His main job wasn't passing laws, it was performing sacred rituals to keep the cosmos spinning.
It was basically the ultimate social contract of the Maya world, blood for rain. The king would actually use an obsidian lancet or a stingray spine to pierce his own flesh, offering his royal blood to open a portal to the gods. The people grew the maize, and the king, in turn, brought the rain. It was an incredibly powerful system, but as we're going to see, it rested on a dangerously fragile promise.
All right, Section 3, cracks in the stucco. Because suddenly, the gears of this magnificent society just stop. As we examine the archaeological record closer, the bustling height of the civilization abruptly gives way to a chilling silence. You see, the Maya tracked time meticulously, using a long count calendar. But starting in 799 AD at Palenque, spreading to Copan in 822, and hitting the superpower city of Tikal in 869, the kings just stop commissioning their public chronologies. Their divine voices are extinguished, one by one.
As our 19th century expedition hacks deeper into the jungle, we find absolute ghost towns with unfinished temples. It is a truly eerie sight. The stonemasons didn't slowly phase out their work. They simply dropped their tools right where they stood and walked away in fear, leaving massive construction projects totally incomplete.
And it wasn't a peaceful exit. We see warfare completely mutate from elite, ritualistic capture to brutal, widespread slaughter over diminishing resources. In the classic period, kings captured other kings for sacrifice. It was highly ritualized. But by the collapse era, we find hastily built defensive walls thrown up right through the middle of grand palaces. We find mass graves and chaotic murals depicting horrific violence. At the city of Agoteca, people fled in such a panic that half-eaten meals were left right there on the kitchen floors.
Section 4. A fragile environment strained.
But war alone doesn't wipe out an entire civilization, right? What was making them so incredibly desperate? Well, they were kind of victims of their own massive success, locking themselves into a self-inflicted environmental death spiral just to build grander temples and feed booming populations. Think about this. Their massive pyramids weren't bare stone. They were coated in brilliant, gleaming white lime plaster. To make that plaster, they had to burn limestone at extreme temperatures. Producing the plaster for just one great pyramid at Tikal required felling nearly 1,000 acres of pristine forest. This stripped away the thin tropical topsoil and severely worsened their local climate.
Moving to Section 5, when the sky dried up.
We've seen the warfare, we've seen the massive deforestation,
But what was the unseen trigger that finally shattered their world? As a 19th century detective armed only with a machete and a sketchbook, you'd be totally scratching your head looking at these empty plazas. I mean, you can't exactly see the weather from 1,000 years ago carved into a stone wall. To solve the final piece of our historical puzzle, we have to step out of the 19th century and rely on modern paleoclimatology.
Luckily, modern science steps in to solve our old mystery. By cross-referencing mud and stalagmites, researchers revealed a catastrophic century-long series of mega-droughts. When scientists drill down into lake beds, they find high levels of gypsum, a mineral that only forms in really dry years. When they look at cave stalagmites, the oxygen isotopes act kind of like tree rings, recording rainfall with almost monthly accuracy. The data is undeniable. Right when the city started falling silent around 750 AD, the region was slammed by the absolute worst droughts it had seen in thousands of years.
Section 6. The Broken Promise.
So the seasonal rains fail. These massive drinking reservoirs evaporate into cracked mud, and the absolute core of Maya society is tested to its breaking point. The kings blood themselves in increasingly desperate ceremonies to beg the gods for rain, but the cosmic bargain was irreparably broken. No matter how much blood the Kuhul Ajau offered up, the sky remained stubbornly silent.
And that ultimate social contract, it just dissolves. The public didn't just abandon their cities. They abandoned the failed religious and political system that could no longer bring the rain. Imagine you're a Maya farmer. Your ancestors have paid tribute to this king for generations because he promised to keep the cosmos in balance. Now, you're starving, the reservoirs are totally dry, and endless, brutal war is literally at your doorstep. The king is useless, the whole system is a lie.
Which leads to our final section, Exodus and Survival.
Because the end of the classic Maya wasn't some fiery Hollywood apocalypse. It was a quiet, profoundly sad fading, as the people simply voted with their feet. It's so essential to take away that the Maya did not go extinct. They adapted brilliantly, transforming their society to survive when their kings failed them. They realized the massive, resource-hungry cities were a death trap, so they left. They shifted their power north to places like Chichen Itza, relying on maritime trade instead of fragile maize farming. And the most incredible part of this whole story? They are still here today. Over 7 million Maya people live in Central America right now, speaking their languages and maintaining their culture. They survive by adapting.
As we leave these silent cities behind in the jungle, they act as this incredibly powerful mirror for us today, leaving us with one final, haunting question to consider. Look at our own resource demands, our own environmental strain. The Maya pushed their environment to its absolute breaking point, relying on a system they believed was infallible. If our systems fail, are we ready to adapt like they did? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this completely changes how you view those magnificent ruins.